Normally I'm doing this somewhere else, I'm using this as a travel log type of thing, and I'm not using it in my own house, let alone my own kitchen. This time around, it's because of some of the traveling that we've done that I'd like to try and replicate a dish that we had. The only problem is we don't have the actual protein. And in fact, we had a lot of trouble trying to find bear meat when we were doing the souvenir shopping, as you might recall. So, this is entirely AI generated. Not this film, but I mean the recipe. The AI gives the impression that you can season beef to simulate the recipe that we had at Gibier Natural that was like a bear hot pot. So, since this is bull masquerading as bear, I'm just going to call this NIKKEI beef and hope that it works. So we start off with 1.5 pounds of beef. They were talking chuck or shank, and I just decided to work with stew meat because those weren't the descriptions that I'm familiar with. A tablespoonful of neutral oil. I'm just using Smart Balance. We don't want to have the oil give its own flavor to the meat. This is going to be used for browning the beef. Now, it was suggested that we use a cup of dashi, and we have the stock here. The problem is I'm told that it requires only half a packet for 2.5 cups. So I'm going to try and get 1/4 of a sachet in here once I've got this cup measure boiling, and we'll see where it goes from there. That might have been a little too much, but it was less than half, so this is a little by guess and by golly. Every bit about this is going to be experimental, I'll say that much. 3 tablespoons soy sauce, a tablespoon of mirin. I'm using kotteri mirin, which is a slightly sweeter thing as I understand it, but other than that it should be okay. Tablespoonful of cooking sake, and 3/4 of a tablespoon of sugar. And we didn't have regular sugar, we're going to use brown sugar. It'll give it a different flavor, but again, this is all going to be a different flavor. And while the recipe calls for a small piece of ginger sliced, I have no idea what constitutes a small piece. And as I'm not terribly fond of ginger, I just sliced up half of this thing. We also have an option to put in a clove of garlic, which would be about a teaspoon of this stuff. We did have a bulb of garlic, but we don't cook all that often, and so it's not in the best of shape, so we're going to use this instead. Well, that was a little bit abrupt, and worse yet, I need to get this thing out of here. This may be the first of many disasters. You know, it looks like a thing of nori if you're not careful. Don't eat it, though. We get enough plastics in our diet as it is. Leave it at that. And we're getting to the point where this is just about sufficiently brown. After all, we're going to be simmering this for a good hour, hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours. Well, it's practically falling apart, frankly. So this should be pretty close. So now we add, in order as we've been told, the dashi, soy sauce, mirin, sugar. That is one problem with brown sugar, that it sticks and hangs around. And the sake, followed by the sliced ginger, and a tablespoon, sorry, not a tablespoon, that would be 3 cloves of garlic, a teaspoon of garlic, and I might just overdo this a little bit because I tend to prefer garlic to ginger. I will admit that's one thing I like. I do have problems with Japanese cooking. I prefer the umami to the sweet, and am not used to having sweet with salty, savory, or anything like that. But this is the way it's supposedly done, and we've certainly enjoyed it when we've had it, so let's work with that. Once we've got it up to a simmer, then we cover it and cook for 90 to 120 minutes. Unlike our favorite cooking show, this doesn't have a whole lot of history behind it. In fact, like I said, it's complete experimentation, both in terms of throwing ingredients together and in terms of trusting AI to get all the ingredients right. We really have no idea what this is like, but the fact of the matter is, when we went to Sapporo in Susukino, we went to this place called Jibira Natural, and honestly, we really loved the bear meat. And we're very disappointed when we couldn't get any when we were back in Otaru later on. My fault, probably. I should have just gone to the Don Quixote right by the station, but I didn't know any better then. But this was touted to us as a possibility to prepare it at home using things that, while not everybody can find at home, we're fortunate to have a mitsuo within, well, I hesitate to say walking distance, but if you consider 5 miles away a walking distance, there you go. But it's within reach in a way that most people not on the coasts could not say. But we can at least gather everything together and see if this works. So we've got to spend some time waiting until it cooks, but it should be nice to see if it does. All right, so the next thing we need to do is to take out a ladle of, oh, yes, I guess I'm going to need a hot pad to get this taken care of. It's been sitting around for, and here's what it looks like so far. Gee, it's a little bit light in terms of liquid, but it says to take a ladle out. Wow. I'm not sure how we're going to do this. It says I should be whisking in some miso paste. We've got a wase miso, which is sort of the all-purpose sort. They have basically shiro, white miso, and aka miso, which is red miso. This blends the two of them together. The only problem is there's not that much in the way of broth here. I'm going to be hard-pressed to get a spoonful. Now, to be fair, it's supposed to be reduced so that it's more of a coating rather than a stew, but we're already down to a coating as it is, so I'm not sure how we're going to do this. Well, time to experiment. So what I'm going to do is take maybe a half a cup of water and boil it and stir in the miso and go from there. For the moment, though, we'll turn this off the heat, pop this in, and hope this works. So we'll pour it in here. And it's a good thing I only put in half a cup. There's no way a full cup would fit in this thing. And then we just sort of whisk this in until the miso dissolves. Using a French whisk because the egg whisk that we have would never fit in here. I'm spilling this all over the place. And now we pour that in here. And we're going to be simmering this uncovered going forward until this reduces to, again, more of a coating than an actual soup. So here goes. Turn it back on, and hopefully this will do the trick. So after about 10 or 15 minutes of stirring this in, we've got it about where we want it, where it's just coating the meat rather than having the meat swimming in it. Meanwhile, Daniel's putting together a lemon sour, the Salaryman Special, using lemon juice, simple syrup, and yuzu bitters. And just the slightest grain of salt, kosher salt. Salt is meant to draw out the sour and the bitter together. I'm kind of surprised that that's supposed to be the way it works, but if it tastes good, who's going to complain? According to him, it is 1 jigger each of the yuzu and the simple syrup, and 2 double jiggers of the lemon juice. And so here we are, 3 plates of mock kumaniku, or as I like to call it, NIKKEI beef. There we are, a GBR meal complete with virgin sour. The boys are waiting for me to try this first because, as the old saying goes, never trust a skinny cook, which is to say, don't trust anybody who's not going to eat their own cooking. Well, I'm not going to say it tastes like kumaniku. It doesn't really taste like that same hot pot. It is a bit more salty, and strangely enough, despite the fact that it smelled a lot sweeter than I expected it to, the brown sugar really made it smell like caramel when you were cooking it. But here and now, there's barely any sweetness to it. It's mostly salty and umami. That's probably the fault of the miso. You definitely should probably use more liquid during the initial hour and a half of cooking as opposed to the little that I had. Honestly, the texture is much more like pot roast rather than sliced meat, so it doesn't really resemble what we had in Sapporo, but at the same time, it's not bad. It's very good. It's not a failure, I don't think. No. But I will leave it to you guys to determine that. And now I'll head over to trying Daniel's lemon sour. Oh, wow. Again, I couldn't tell you if this is authentic, but there's no question that it's sour, and it could use maybe a little more carbonation, but what are you going to do? This is really good. Logan had a few options for using egg white or other things that would make it foam, but honestly, I thought carbonated water would be more than sufficient. One of these days, I'm going to have to do this side by side with an actual can of the stuff. I'm pretty sure you can find the booze over at Binny's, but it's not usually worth it to get the virgin stuff imported from Japan. Heck, we had trouble trying to find it at the 7-Eleven or the Family Mart over there, so there you go. Not a bad meal. We can probably scale this up for company later on, so I think this is going to work. Now all we need to do is figure out what to put alongside of it. The boys and I have been discussing about various tweaks we could make to this. Logan thinks this would be best with brisket or better cooked in a slow cooker. I keep thinking that there should be a little bit more liquid in it to begin with, but I'm not sure how to go about doing that. But as far as AI recipes are concerned, this one turned out really well. There's no way we'd confuse it with the bear dish that we had in Sapporo, but honestly, that was a one-time thing, and it's hard to remember what exactly it tasted like, how it felt on the tongue, what the flavor profile was exactly. Clearly, the texture is different. Like I said, it's very much like pot roast here as far as the taste goes. But it's really very toothsome, and we're definitely going to try this again. Maybe with a decent supply of rice on the side. But it worked out real well. Gonna have to try and do some more AI cooking in the future.